Public. Welcome, Andy.
Woohoo.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited for this. DK and I were playing around we both made our read.cv profiles and having a lot of fun the other day.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. How long have you been working on this?
I think I started on it last September, but it was sort of like a side project for a long time.
Yeah.
But more recently started taking it a little more seriously, built a team around it. So I've been working on it full time for real since the end of February, basically.
Got it.
Yeah.
What were those first inklings that sparked the side project? Or was the side project pretty similar in vibe, or have things shifted a lot?
No, yeah, honestly, it's pretty similar. We've just kept working on the same product, basically. It started, I guess, as a side project last summer. Basically, I was working at Quip before then. I don't know if you guys know the company Quip, not the toothbrush company. They make documents. Yeah. And so I was working there on the design team, and ended up leaving in the middle of last summer, so in July. I don't know what it was. It was just had the itch to do something independent again. And so it just took some time to sort of explore. And yeah, I was just kind of freelancing, doing a little bit of design work, contracting, and I just kind of wanted this product just to share with potential collaborators. Something I have my personal portfolio, but something that sort of showed off your work history and experience as well. And sort of mashing that up with a portfolio a little bit that actually showed what work you do. And so, yeah, I started building that, and kind of decided to make it a platform rather than a page on my own website, just because I feel showing off your credentials on your own website always felt a little bit kind of tacky to me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sort of felt humble braggy or something. Whereas you have a platform that sort of sets the context for that kind of thing. It feels a little more socially acceptable. So yeah, I just started working on the platform. At the same time, I realized I did not like contracting. And so kind of just switched over to working on this till the end of the year. I said, okay, I'm going to work on this thing, till December or the new year and just see what happens. So yeah, I just kind of worked on it from September to November, and that's when I released tweeted the first version out. And sort of I didn't expect much. I almost didn't even release it or anything, and the reception was it was way more than I thought it would be. People are immediately responding, being hey, LinkedIn's dead, let's just use this. I'm dude, I made this by myself in 3 months. Doesn't do anything that LinkedIn does.
That's an interesting idea though, because
also, but go ahead.
I feel there's something in the water, for years now where people are always sort of predicting the demise of LinkedIn, or even cheering or hoping for. Because I think some people feel frustrated by some of the complications of the UI and some of the, the various, there's kind of the kitchen sink worth of features in there. And so I wonder, why have we not seen, with read.cv, it's not any of that. It's just very focused on this one specific way that you can sort of self-express. And I wonder, why haven't we seen anything like this yet?
In terms of why we haven't seen anything like read.cv, I don't, there are competing products, right? There are other sort of resume builders and that kind of thing. So I don't want to say that we're the only people in the world doing it. But yeah, I think the reason why maybe something like this hasn't really been able to take down LinkedIn is just that they're such an incumbent, right? Their model isn't even focused on letting you tell your story, right? It's entirely around just, data acquisition and being able to get recruiters to pay them money, basically. And for a lot of people, if you don't exist on LinkedIn, then you kind of just don't exist. It's the first platform that people go to. So there's definitely a lot of challenges ahead to, really truly take down LinkedIn. But yeah, I think that the reception to the first, version of it, which was way more positive than I thought ever imagined would be. I think you're right. It does sort of that indicated to me that there was sort of a thirst for this type of product that's such a complete 180 from what LinkedIn is, right? If you think about how convoluted and bogged down the LinkedIn interface is versus like the first version of read.cv, which was like, I guess it's like super minimal and just kind of like bare bones. I think that's sort of what's resonating with people. And so we're trying to like, that's definitely like the spirit of the product, and we're going to keep pushing that.
Right. I'm interested in the idea that you mentioned that if you were to make it on your own site, it would feel like a humble brag. But if you can make it on read.cv, it feels like it's a nice place to have like a kind of a second home like that. And I wonder, when I think about that, I wonder how it may fit into kind of people's existing workflows or habits or patterns, because one thing we talk about a lot on Building in Public is this kind of like link in bio phenomenon. And we wonder, like, is that something that's top of mind for you as sort of a discovery or access point for something like read.cv, or do you think of it like in a totally different way?
No, yeah. For sure, like the first version, I was like, all I wanted was people to like replace their link in bio with their URL. I mean, that's part of the reason why, like, even the URL, like read CV, it's like, it's not even really like a brand or anything. It's sort of just like functional. It's like super short. Yeah. It's like, hey, read CV Andy, right? It's like, It's sort of like just, it functions that way. So yeah, definitely have been intrigued with that space. Like a lot of people in that space, like, have been kind of blown away by how well, simple products like, Linktree and whatnot, what have you, have done, and how much that's resonated with people. And also just, given the way people use platforms today as sort of like the professional networks already, for example, obviously Twitter is a big one for all sorts of people in tech, designers and artists and creatives using Instagram. It seemed like a pretty natural place to sort of like, hey, here's like an extension of that, which is just like my little read CV link in my bio.
Right.
I mean, going forward, we do want to obviously build out the platform more and be more than just, a one little like, about.me style page. But the first version, definitely, that was like part of the inspiration.
Yeah. And I wonder too, if as you've sort of gotten more people on, kind of giving feedback or asking for things, I think about my own kind of desire is to actually be able to use it at my own domain. So I think the thing you were saying you were trying to avoid, I actually see it and I'm like, oh, I'd actually like to use it that way. Not so much as a humble brag, but almost like a structured, but more of like a self-sovereign version of like who I am. So instead of entrusting that to, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I can kind of, run it on kind of some network software, but actually can kind of control the discovery and destination endpoint.
Yeah. And we've had people like redirect their URLs to their read.cv profile, which has been awesome. Like, there's a few good ones like Soleo. If you go to like soleo.cv, it like goes to his read.cv profile. Noah Levin, who is like the design director at Figma, just did it randomly, and I was like, wow, like that's awesome. So it's definitely something that like we're not like trying to ignore that use case. Like, I actually think that would be really cool to be able to hook up a custom domain to your profile.
Yeah. It seems so genuine, because like the job search done at its best really is just like, what have I really cared about making in the world, and like who do I know who believes in me? And I feel like those two things come through so clearly and cleanly in this interface, instead of like all of this clutter. But it's not only for like the job search. I mean, to what you guys were just talking about before, it's just like pure, simple self-expression that could serve a lot of different use cases.
For sure. Yeah. And there's certain features too, like, like the ability to like tag your collaborators and coworkers in there, I think just feels like, hopefully like a more sort of natural sort of social graph, if you will. And so even if you're not looking for a job or something, you might be able to find like, if you're looking to like hire someone, you can find, hey, I know, David, he's a super talented guy, and you can kind of go to his profile and see, hey, here's everyone that he's sort of worked with over the years and kind of assume that, hey, these are sort of like natural endorsements, right? Like if I'm looking for an engineer, maybe I'll go to David's profile and see who he's worked with, that kind of thing.
Totally. So I wonder what the graph is. Is it meant to be like, if, let's say, I think if I just sent a link to your profile. So I think we were trying to understand. So you worked on like the reactions product at Facebook. And so obviously Facebook's like a really big company. So there's, I don't know, 10,000 or more people who work there. So would you imagine that the network here is like the specific people you worked with on the reactions project, but you would not want to be connected to other people at Facebook on that profile entity?
I mean, the way that works right now is like on a project basis, you would probably tag the people that you worked on in that project. There's also, if you scroll down on my profile, there's like a, just a general work experience, like, product designer at Facebook, whatever. And there's like a ton of people tagged in there. And so I think on the profile surface, it's nice to surface the people that you actually, know and have worked with in real life. But we're also looking into like how we can actually extend beyond that, right? Because it is a little limiting if you can only connect with people that you've actually worked with. It's like, well, what's the point even? Because you already know them. And so we're working on ways now, like to sort of like connect with new people and that kind of thing in more natural ways.
Yeah, I also got to imagine that because the entity of Facebook in this example is a structured entity, that today when I click on that, I end up at facebook.com, but I'd like to stay on read.cv and see all of the projects and all of the people. So I assume is that coming soon, or is that,
Yeah, we have plans to, add a lot more structured data and definitely, account beyond just individual profiles, being able to create, company and team profiles, that kind of thing. That's all sort of in the works. It's just, it's a lot of stuff to do, but we'll get there.
How do you think about sort of the roadmap of prioritization and how you focus on, like, is it a week by week set of decisions or priorities, or day by day? How does the flow kind of in the pace of work?
Yeah. So right now our team is like 3 people. It's myself, a friend of mine, Joey, and our other friend, Mehdi. And typically, I mean, what we kind of do is we've set out like, I think we've sort of set out like all the products we want to build in like the next year. And we're sort of just sort of like tackling them one at a time. Typically how it works is, how it has worked so far is myself and Mehdi have been building the products. And now that Joey's working with us, Joey's like incredible. He's the best designer I know. So it's crazy that he's working with us. He's been able to actually get ahead of the game and design all the upcoming features. So it's sort of like,
cool.
And it's not a crazy unique process. We have Joey designing stuff, and then we sort of tag along and build it. And so far it's been like, our cadence has been like, about once a month or every 6 weeks, we're able to ship something out. And again, we only really started all working together like at the beginning of March. So it's new, very iterative. So yeah.
Do you have a lot of kind of day by day interaction with, with people who are asking for feature requests, almost like a customer or user support or user experience? Do you have a lot of that kind of day by day discussion, or is more inward focused today?
We recently started like a Discord server. So we're on there. We started like really recently, so it's not too huge yet, but I mean, like even just this morning, I guess when it rains and pours, there's like a bunch of problems. And so we're able to just, it was great to be able to, basically debug it live
cool.
on Discord, rather than like, having someone send you an email and then like going back and forth on email. Like it's made that process a lot easier. But it's cool because we use Discord for like our own internal communication as well. And so everything's sort of just like in one place.
Cool. So you might be one of the first, projects I've heard that's not focused on a community, meaning it's not itself a community, it's more like a company or product, but is actually using Discord instead of Slack. So is that kind of an intentional decision that internally you would use that as well as kind of with your community? We were using Slack for a little bit, but then once we realized that like we could actually we're all like, I don't know, I feel like we're late to the game on Discord. Like I didn't even really understand it. Like I still don't really understand it. But
it just made sense to have it all in one place. And so when we started the Discord community, we're like, hey, let's just use this for our own communication as well. And that way we'll actually be able to respond to people in a timely manner because we're already going to be online. So
yeah.
So you have your own like private channels among the internal team and then kind of separate public channels for community?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It seemed kind of dangerous at first, but there hasn't been any issues yet. So
yeah. What kinds of people have been like some interesting early users that you've been finding? And do you know where they're coming from, how they're finding out about read.cv?
Yeah. I mean, our kind of like two big spikes were like, I mean, almost all of our sort of spikes come from Twitter. I don't know. I can't think like I'm not good at like marketing or like talking about our work, but for whatever reason, Twitter sort of seems to just work. And so a lot of people through Twitter, which is cool. It's mostly, like product designers, kind of like design oriented engineers, product people, that kind of thing. Another big boost was from Hacker News. We posted on there. It was like, it sat at the top of Hacker News for like 2 days. And so we got like a ton of engineers from that. So those have been sort of like the channels, but we've had some like kind of unexpected ones. Like I actually think that, just because I come from like a tech background and sort of attracted that kind of audience, but I had like a friend of mine, Jeff, who runs this art and design blog called Boom. And he posted an article about it like super early on, and we got like a ton of like filmmakers and artists and that kind of thing signing up. And so, yeah, a lot of photographers as well. And so I actually am pretty excited about the prospect of just getting creative people in general using it.
Yeah. Because those are also, I feel like the people who don't really, I mean, even less so, would be using like LinkedIn or some of these kind of platforms to connect with their professional community. And I was struck by this like tweet that you posted with all these examples of, I just put it in chat, people who have been like creating interesting profiles. And yeah, I mean, it's great to see like these photographers and creatives and people like that trickling in.
So has that become like a bigger share of who wants to use it or who's discovering it as people like the, let's say creative types, filmmakers, photographers, et cetera? Is that kind of on the rise?
My bad.
Oh, did we lose you?
It froze for a second, and then I was like, "Oh crap!"
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, or something.
So yeah, I was just asking if that has been kind of a greater proportion of people using it these days is more kind of the creative types, or still a little bit of the kind of Silicon Valley designer product person.
I wouldn't say it's more of it, but I think it's something that we would like to encourage and like find more avenues to like reach out to. I think that just because like my personal following and on Twitter, it just has happened to have skewed that way. But like in the future, I would love to find more avenues to reach out to like other creative fields, basically. Especially because like we're just releasing this new feature called like Pages, where you're able to actually, rather than just link to content, you can actually create it natively on read.cv, and so you can create like case studies or articles about your work. That just lends itself, I think, really well to like the creative people who have a lot of rich, more, they have writing and they have like they might have rich visuals to show off as well, right? And so this is sort of like a place where they can kind of share that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool. So Pages becomes a little bit like a canvas for it's a hosted page, almost like a mini blogging service, or
exactly. Yeah. I like made a page that like.
Oh, here, actually, send me a link because we actually have screen sharing now, so I'll just pop it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Link will pop up.
I just shared a link in the discussion.
Okay, cool.
This is like
so we can look at it together.
Yeah, this is like the introducing Pages page.
This one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So yeah, basically you can just create these. You can just create these like one-off or like standalone pages that you can link to really easily, where you can kind of create like tell more of a story about a project, more than fits into like your usual, little snippet kind of thing. Yeah, so this is we actually haven't even really announced this feature yet. We were going to do it yesterday, but then we realized, like Apple has an event yesterday, so probably a bad day to launch it. So we're holding off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the whole feature's out there now. You can use it. It has this like crazy photo viewing feature where if you actually click on any of these images, they'll scale up real big.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's really nice.
Oh, it's really nice. Oh, I like that a lot.
And then, yeah, I'll share like, my brother's like a great example of someone who has just like a ton of pages and how it kind of turns your profile into more of a, more than just a traditional CV. It turns into sort of like a portfolio as well, right? So, I just linked it in the discussion, but basically,
okay, I'll pop it in here.
This is my brother Tom, who's like a industrial designer. So again, nothing with tech at all, but you can the pages kind of show up more visually on this profile there as little like thumbnails, and you can kind of like, click on one of his projects and see, oh hey, here's like,
oh cool,
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love this.
Beautiful stuff. Wow.
Yeah, it's also so nice that you have people who are making great content on this thing. So it really sets the tone for what good looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one thing that we felt really excited about, is that the people that are adopting, the platform are people that kind of like get it in a sense, like they kind of like understand. I think they sort of appreciate the fact that what we're trying to do isn't like, cram our own like brand identity down your throat. Yes. It's like, we're actually very uninterested in creating a brand, and we wanted to create this sort of like, invisible design language that just lets your content do the talking. Like, that's kind of what I've always had an issue with personally on all these other platforms for, creative people like Dribble or Behance or whatever, where it was sort of like, when you went to someone's profile on there, it still felt like Behance. It didn't feel like, your own. It didn't feel like your individual place, right? So we're trying to create something that's sort of like, a container. We don't even have like a logo. We don't have a logo on the page anywhere, right? So
right. Yeah, so that's kind of intentional versus just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's also time saving.
Yeah,
to not have to invest in.
I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, it goes again to that idea of like how I would like to use this kind of thing to host my own domain, because it feels like I can really create something that's mine and me, and it's not like me living in somebody else's container, but it's really me. So I think the fact that it actually is so simple and gets out of the way, it's almost like edge to edge pixel is part of what's really exciting about this.
Yeah, sure, it reminds me a little. We were looking at FigJam this morning.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you could imagine people's project pages being something like this. It's sort of like a whiteboard for what they're proud of and like what they want to showcase online. And that's just so difficult to do. Like right now on the internet, you basically have to code it for yourself from scratch. I think there's like a nice, clean way of doing it like you're building.
For sure, yeah. I mean, that's a cool comparison.
Yeah.
FigJam stuff looked awesome, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious to hear more of your story, like how you got into design and like what were your inspirations early on when you were studying? Who do you look up to now? That seems like such a core part of how this came together.
Yeah. Good question. I mean, I kind of got into design, not at all through tech or anything like that. I probably in high school was when I started getting interested in it, and it was through like mountain biking and through BMX.
Oh, really?
Basically. Oh. Yeah. And so basically it was like, it's sort of like, it's similar to like skateboarding, right? Where you just grow up and you're just like filming your friends, doing tricks and that kind of thing. And so we would just, that's all we did, is that we would just go out riding and just film each other doing stuff. And then we would come back home and like make edits. And so, and then like share them on the internet. And so basically there was like design work around that, right? Where like you would be creating graphics for the videos, or like you know, even the whole process of editing a video is like creative, right? Where you're choosing the music and you're trying to, you know, get the vibe right. And so that's sort of how I got into design. And actually my first design internship was at like a Canadian BMX company called McNeil, which was awesome. I got to work with the art director there, Harrison Boyce, who has gone on to become like an incredible filmmaker. But yeah, that was awesome. It was like the dream job. You could like create actual graphics for bikes. Like, what could be better? And so yeah, I studied communication design in school, so a lot of print work. Wasn't that interested in digital work, to be honest, but just kind of fell into it because everyone needed a website, basically. And so I had a little bit of experience doing that, just to, you know, publish like, I think I'd published like WordPress blogs for our bike stuff. And so I just ended up making a lot of websites for friends. And so it was sort of like all the inspiration from that came from like print design. And so I guess that was sort of like the unique angle a little bit at the time. Yeah, that's sort of how, I guess that's how I started getting into it. Inspirations at the time were like, you know, I think the websites that were big then were like, I don't know if you guys remember Found.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like Found was like just the best
like
website
4
ever.
apps or something, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, other inspirations from that time that stuck around are like, do you remember like Indexhibit? It was
no. What was that one?
Indexhibit. It was like a little self-publishing website tool, basically, where you could like, I don't know, install this crazy PHP app. But it was made by this artist called Daniel Etok, and the idea was that it would just be like a super standardized sort of artist portfolio template that's like extensible forever. So you create all the work ever. I'll add a link here to his work. But there was a period of time, like in 2009 or something, where like every single designer had a Indexhibit website. And so I feel like Found and Daniel Etok and Indexhibit were like formative, and they're still like they're still like super inspirational. Like I have this like really stupid project called Andy's World, which is like it's so cool. It's just like an image sharing app, and that's like super inspired by Found. Daniel Etok's work, I think, is like, he's like an artist and designer, super inspirational. Like just the other day, he sells these great, like, you go to his website right now, he has these like diptychs, rolling pin paintings, like, they're great. I just bought one the other day. So yeah, those are sort of like, I think, two big inspirations.
Yeah, totally.
I'm looking at Andy's World. So this is Andy's World is a website for collecting images. Every once in a while, images are selected for the front page. So are you you use this as your personal repository?
I mean, I don't even know what Andy's World is at this point. It's like,
oh, okay.
Andy's World was like this, like, it was honestly, I made Andy's World during, so I used to work at Quip, which is a Salesforce company. And so I think in like 2017, Salesforce is this like super corny thing called Dreamforce. If you guys work in San Francisco, I'm sure you know about Dreamforce. And basically, if you work at Salesforce and you're not like on the sales team, it's, you know, a week where you don't have to do anything. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to learn React and like Firebase. And so I just created this weird image sharing app called Andy's World, which is a really goofy name. And just sort of like put it on my own website. And so for whatever reason, people seem to still use it, but all you do is you upload images and they go to the front page. And it's sort of I guess it's sort of grown into this weird tiny community of people that enjoy the aesthetic. And so it sort of has its own vibe, I guess, if you scroll down. But yeah,
I like the feel.
It is what it is.
It's so simple. Again, it doesn't feel like you're dropped into a social network with a bunch of following and stuff like that. You just kind of like pop in and there's the stuff, there's the content. That's cool.
For sure, yeah. I'm surprised anyone still uses it, but if
That's epic.
you're on Andy's world, shout out to you.
I use it now.
Yeah.
Have you these people are like complete like randos on the internet, or
a lot of them are people that I used to work with at Quip. There's a good number of people on here that I don't know, but I would like consider friends. Now that like we've never even like talked because there's no way to talk on Andy's world, but but they'll keep coming back and posting stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is cool.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah. Does your graphic really need a gradient?
That is awesome. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's so cool. What about like in the space of product design itself? So like in the intersection of people who are working in tech and design, are there people who have been particularly like important mentors or that you know, like look up to or bounce ideas off now? It sounds like you have a great team as well of people who probably do this with you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, in terms of product design, I think that when I joined Facebook in 2011, 2012, and like the design team then was super formative for like just learning a lot about how to actually build software. My background was not really building software, and so I was sort of like winging it. But when I joined Facebook, it was sort of like boot camp for like, hey, here's how you do it if you're like a professional. So a lot of the people that I worked with there at the time were like really just really important for my career development. People that I'm happy to consider friends now still, but like Brandon Walken, I learned a ton from him. Joey Flynn, who, like I said, we're working together now again. At the time, Mike Mattis was working at Facebook, and so just seeing like his process was pretty wild. You know, like he was doing stuff with, you know, Course Composer that I had no idea was even remotely possible. So yeah, a lot of those folks were super important.
And you mentioned Soleo. Did you guys overlap at Facebook as well?
Soleo interviewed me, but I don't think he was there when I actually joined.
Okay.
Yeah.
He has a good network of designers from back in the day at Facebook.
For sure, yeah.
Are you connected with their community at Combine? Because they have a lot of people around kind of, I don't know if they might not still run the space in COVID, but they have like a beautiful space in Soma where they host a lot of cool design events and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Did I answer the question? I can't remember what the original question was. Yeah. There's also people. Oh, go for it.
Oh no, go ahead. I was going on a different tangent.
Yeah, I was gonna say like just like more recently, people that I think have been doing cool stuff. Like there's so many people now doing work which is like incredible. Like I was working for a little bit with Benji, who made this app Honk.
Oh yeah,
cool.
And so
I use Honk.
Yeah, like Honk is like next level. Like it's so well done. Like their attention to detail and everything is just phenomenal. So it's cool. It's cool seeing software like that still being made. So
yeah, I love how simple, and every animation tells you like exactly what's going on and where you should be. It feels like the animations, even though it's kind of a simple concept, the animations really help you understand like physically what is happening, even though it's all virtual. So I love the way that works. I think I follow him on Twitter. I'm going to share his Twitter out there in case people want to catch Benji Taylor.
Oh yeah,
Are you using Honk much? Is that kind of a core messenger for you?
I wish I was using it more. I feel like my biggest issue is that I don't have too many friends on there. So I would have had more friends on there. I think that's the issue with like social and messaging apps. But
yeah. I find like I have like a few people on it who I use it with, and when we do, it's fun, and I try to get more people on it from time to time when I'm thinking about it. It's a great experience. When kind of back on the read CV stuff, when there was this kind of movement a while back where people thought that kind of LinkedIn was going to get unbundled into a bunch of these like vertical specific networks. So things like a designer focused one in Behance or Dribble, and maybe a software engineer focused one in GitHub, and kind of the media or kind of topic specific ones. I think they've had their own form of success, but they have not really, they've not really taken hold in the way that LinkedIn, as kind of a pretty broad horizontal, has. And I wonder, when you think about kind of read CV in the future, do you think that it certainly kind of addresses kind of the designers, kind of Silicon Valley tech, and then maybe branching into some, photographers and creatives and videographers and others. But I wonder, like, do you think there's certain kind of features that, you're being pulled toward to serve other use cases or kind of vertical specific use cases? Or do you feel like kind of for long run, you've got a lot of just horizontal stuff that you can focus on to build out?
Yeah. I think we've been hesitant to go like overly vertical on anything. I think for sort of the reason that like, I think there's like, I believe that there are, like you said, like websites that like GitHub or Dribble that are doing a good job for these very specific verticals. And I think the tools we're trying to build are a little bit more, like you said, a little more horizontal. I hate like saying this out loud, but like the tools I think that we're trying to build or resonate with us are like for the sort of like digital knowledge worker, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
Which I think is sort of like, more and more, that's sort of a segment that's growing a lot. And that's basically like the tools that we're trying to build for. Most likely, as we understand how people are using it more, then we'll create more and more specific tools that are sort of like in response to that. But at the moment, we're focused on trying to go somewhat horizontal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. And it sounds like a lot of the growth today comes from these spiky Twitter events, like something happens and somebody picks it up. And I'm wondering, like, do you feel like that is, just continue down the path of kind of building new product features and kind of waiting for those moments to occur, and presumably would occur more frequently the more people are using it? Or do you have like other specific thoughts around how you can kind of nurture new communities or nurture features to be more shareable, or to sort of help kind of support the kind of scale that you might imagine you'd like to get?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be naive to say that like, oh, we're just going to put it on Twitter for the rest of eternity and eventually we'll become like a massive business. I wish that's how easy it was, but realistically, that's probably not going to be true. For the time being, as we're small, I think that we're working on like just really table stakes features, and so to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to like try and like blast this out a ton and try and do a bunch of ad spend to go to market just yet. But in the future, I think we'll definitely have to create a strategy around that to sort of reach out to specific communities and try to get them on board. In the meantime, as much as we can do to do that organically, great. And so we're still trying to figure that out. It's like you said, it's sort of happening on Twitter. Like we're very interested in figuring out if this could happen like on TikTok. But I think there's going to be a lot of stuff to try in order to get that kind of growth. So
it seems like there would be a strong value prop for people who are in transition right now in career to like be able to reframe and reset who they are and what they're doing in a clean, easily shareable way. So it feels like the core product as it exists today is really compelling. And I wonder if you wanted to be more proactive about some of these, if finding those hubs, there's like these Slack groups where people gather around these career transitions. It almost feels like connecting with the leaders of those groups and helping showcase how this can make their community better. It seems like it could be a good way to nurture kind of at least, some more kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, programmatic growth, or something that has like, you can actually push on it instead of just hope for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one conversation I had with one of our users that I thought was like super surprising was there's this one girl who made an account, and she's like in high school, and so she made this really compelling profile, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, because you're in high school, you don't have a ton of work experience, and yet you were able to make this profile that like was super compelling,
right?
So much so that I reached out to you to be like, hey, this is cool, let's talk about it. And I was sort of like, how did you, how can we get like more people like you on here? And she was just saying like, yeah, I found out about LinkedIn through TikTok.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like, I was like, you like heard about LinkedIn through TikTok? That's actually like so mind bending to me.
Yeah.
And so I later went on the TikTok, and I was like, oh, it makes sense, because there's a ton of like these tutorials that people are making on there. I'm like, hey, you're a high school student. Here's how to use LinkedIn to get jobs. Like, that kind of thing. Like, here's who's hiring, like, remotely or whatever. And so that just blew my mind. I was like, okay, yeah, here's like a cohort of people who are definitely in transition. They're like new high school graduates that are looking for their first job or whatever. And they're all like finding these TikTok tutorials, and that's how they're like kind of going about their job search. So yes, there's probably a ton of these sort of like in transition moments that we could capitalize on. That would be super cool.
Right. That actually reminds me of, I've been deep in the TikTok rabbit hole now, and I'm sending him to Mishti every day. Like, look at this. This is cool what they're doing. But one of the things that I was surprised by recently is that, there's a thing like Excel TikTok.
No, I don't.
That was so embarrassing. What?
It's, you think of TikTok as like memes and dancing and music. And there's actually people who do like little kind of bite-sized Excel tutorials, like skill tutorials for how to accomplish something in Excel.
Right.
And it starts with like a big banner about like, what is the skill you're going to get? As soon as you click in, they're like taking you through the, some sort of like screen capture plus voiceover for how to, I don't know, create a formula or a macro or something. It almost makes me wonder.
I've seen that for design too, where people are like, hey, here's like a little Illustrator tutorial or something, and it's like, a minute long, and honestly, I've like learned stuff. I've been like, oh wow, like that's how you achieve that effect. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like, do you think about already, embedding like a TikTok into a read.cv? Like, does that have a place, or should it live on a page maybe, or what's the kind of integration point there? If somebody had knowledge they wanted to share and kind of showcase, okay, I'm an expert at Excel, and look at all these 5-10 things I know how to do.
Yeah. I mean, we should definitely support embedding TikTok, at least in pages. Like, our embed feature is kind of weak right now. We only do Twitter, so we would like to expand that to be a ton of services. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that if you're like, I mean, in this day and age, like if you really are like a TikTok influencer, like, I feel very stupid saying that, but I shouldn't say stupid, but like, that's like a legit thing now, right? Where like people will hire you for that skill, right? So you should be able to tell that story as coherently as possible on your read.cv profile, because it's like a legitimate thing.
Have you thought about telling the read.cv story through TikTok at all?
Yeah, we're sort of like thinking about that. We're trying to figure out how to do it. Like, I don't think any of us on the core team feel like we should be like the ones to tell it. Okay. We're like, maybe it's us. I don't know. We're not gonna like doing a dance or a challenge or something. But yeah.
Well, I found it interesting. I was poking around. I've noticed, if you just like search for like a hashtag Y Combinator, you actually find like tons of startup related content. And I think somewhat like the process of an early stage kind of product building thing is really interesting to people. And most people don't have any exposure to it. Like, probably you feel like you're bathed in it because all your friends are building new products and designing things, and you're sort of living that. But I think a lot of people in the world who might be intrigued by like mass media programming, like a Shark Tank, that's kind of like further down the funnel when things are already sort of built and people are sort of raising money. But I almost feel like there's this early raw, like, what does it look like when there's 3 of you? Like, how do you run a design sprint? How do you run like a process? I think all of
less than like not necessarily kind of being like read.cv is amazing, use it. But if you were just like, this is what 3 designers look like on Figma together, like here's 1 minute in the life of like, yeah, I think that'd be really interesting actually.
Yeah, I really like the I don't know if you guys remember this one, but like the Monet dating one that they went kind of viral. I thought that was like it felt so good and like it felt so genuine. That it just made you want those guys to do well and succeed. So yeah, I think that if you can tell your story in that way, TikTok's a great platform for it.
Yeah, actually, I'm curious, kind of more like to dig more a little bit on your like day-to-day process. What does it look like? Are you like on the phone with Joey and Mehdi, or like I don't know, how do you guys all coordinate, and are you in the same location? What's your cadence of stuff?
Yeah. So I mean, Joey's in San Francisco and I'm in Berkeley, so we're in the same time zone at least. We meet like once a week in person. Usually at like a wine bar. I don't know. Are you guys both in San Francisco?
I'm in San Francisco, yeah.
Hawaii, actually.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, yeah, we usually meet at like Ruby Wine in Potrero. It's a great spot. But yeah, Mehdi is a little more challenging. He's in Tokyo. So we have sort of like a situation where I'll wake up and then the first thing I do is probably just check my messages and then respond to anything Mehdi needs before he goes to bed, and then around like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock PST, he'll wake up and then be online, and so we kind of take it from there. But
so it sounds like you sort of operate as a roughly distributed team, somewhat out of necessity, just from sort of how it organically grew up. I wonder if you think about like fast forward, a year in the future, everybody's vaccinated, no COVID problems. Do you imagine that you'll continue to grow like that and look like that? Or do you think you'll centralize more around like a hub city like San Francisco or Berkeley? Or how do you think the future might look?
Yeah, I mean, most likely we'll continue to bring people on regardless of location if it makes sense. But it is nice having people that are in the same time zone. I won't say that it's like doesn't come without its pros and cons. So I think we just have to treat it like on a case-by-case basis to see if it works for our team. I think one thing also is that right now everyone on our team works really independently, and so I can just trust that either Joey or Mehdi are, everyone's sort of working on their own track and can kind of handle their workload really well. I think that just comes with like experience, basically. And so it kind of comes down to like, the person's working style, right? If you can work independently, then go for it, right?
Do things tend to split pretty cleanly in terms of like you all are able to pretty much go off and work and then like reconvene every now and then, or what do you each end up focusing the most on?
Things work generally pretty cleanly. I mean, I think that especially with like, with Joey, who's like strictly focused on design, that is like a very clean track of work. Like, we're not going to have to, worry about like a literal like merge conflict or something with what he's working on. For me and Mehdi, it does work pretty well. I think like I'm a designer, so mostly what I'm doing is like front end work. And Mehdi's just like an all arounder. So, he's able to sort of tackle a lot of the problems that are too much for me to handle, basically. And so that's typically how the workload sort of like nets out. I think the only thing that like I would say is like, since I'm like, a pretty B-rate engineer, to be totally honest, there are times where like I'll get stuck on something at like noon and I'm like, damn it, like it'd be awesome if Mehdi was here right now. I could ask him a question. I think the other time we had like an issue was when like Mehdi was doing some migration at like 4 a.m. our time, and like accidentally, this is like when we first started working together, like February, and like overwrote a bunch of stuff in the database. And then he like called me at like 4 a.m. I was like, dude, like, how's the backup work? I was like, oh no, like,
oh no.
Right, so it is, I mean, other than those few times, it's like, it's been pretty smooth, but Yeah.
We also always like to ask people what they're curious about more generally, like what kind of questions or things are interesting to you in the world besides, I mean, not necessarily outside of your work, but could be other things going on or what you're reading or what you're listening to and finding interesting.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta like sound interesting now. I mean, what have we been doing? I mean, so I guess during COVID we got a dog, so been doing a lot of
yeah.
doing a little dog training.
What kind of dog?
Let's see, where is she? She's a little Jindo. We adopted her from Korea. And so Jindos they're cool dogs. They just like they're super loyal, but they're also like super stubborn. And so it's been interesting watching her like develop her personality more as she gets older and not listen to us.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow, they're pretty big too, huh? 30 to 50 pounds.
She's like just under 40 pounds.
Wow.
What I've been listening to, man, I feel like my musical taste has been, I don't know. Every morning I just listen to the Do You radio show on NTS.
What is that? Wait, I haven't heard of that.
Let me find it. So NTS is like it's a radio station. I think it's located somewhere in Europe, but there's adding the link right now. Oh, yep, you got it.
This guy.
Yeah, every morning there's this guy that does Charlie Bones. He does this show called the Do You Breakfast Show. He has great taste in music, and if you listen to it long enough, you'll actually start enjoying the anecdotes and banter. So, yeah, this is basically all I've been listening to.
Is it kind of like a talk show style, or is there like music mixed in, or?
No, it's mostly music, but there's sort of like regulars that call in. I wish I lived in the same time zone because there's like a whole culture around the chat when they do the show live, but
right.
I'm not, so I have to listen to the repeats.
It has a little bit of the same vibe as like a KCRW. Is it sort of in that same flavor?
I don't know the reference.
Oh, KCRW creates and curates unique mix of content revolving around music discovery, NPR news, cultural exploration, and informed public affairs.
Maybe, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, you guys, I'd highly recommend it.
That's cool.
And then the last thing.
Where do you find the things that you end up enjoying? Is it just like random stuff scattered across the internet, or?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember where I discovered it.
What are the wild spaces on the internet? Are you finding places that are like unstructured where stuff's just kind of, maybe there's Slack groups or Discord servers or, the wild spaces?
Like Andy's world.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of what I've been excited about, like maybe community wise. Well, I did find, I don't even know what their stage is at, but let's see if I can find it. One here, I'll post it in a link. This guy, David, who I think I know him through Andy's world, created this community building tool called Gardens. And I haven't actually used it too much, but I thought it looked really exciting and compelling. It basically allows you to sort of like, it basically takes like, chat, forums, and sort of like, what else do they have? Yeah, wikis, and allows you to sort of like mix and match all these different sort of like entity types into like one space, which is your community. And yeah, I just thought that this product looked like really compelling, and obviously the design language is sort of like in the spirit of what resonates with me. So yeah, I was pretty excited to see this. So
this is kind of like a group, almost like a forum. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so you look on the left in the spaces thing. There's sort of like there's like the forum, and then there's like chat, notes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so I'm curious to see
That's
where this
cool.
goes. Yeah.
Wow. Super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is a nice, it also kind of very focused, simple aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also just more open and unstructured. Like, that's why I brought up Fig Jam and all of these things. I feel like you don't necessarily need to text someone with like a back and forth message exchange, or like that. You don't need to showcase your work that way. If you could just have sort of like whiteboard space in more places on the internet, I think that's like something that seems to be emerging more and more. Probably lead to interesting forms of expression.
Yeah. I'm also, what else? A friend of mine, Julius, is working on the Makespace project, which is very much so in that sort of like whiteboard, freeform collaboration type of tool. I'm excited.
Is that Makespace.fun?
Yeah, Makespace.fun.
Okay, I'm popping over here. Oh yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do the little collision like that. Here, we'll take a look at Makespace.
Oh, this is so cool. Wow.
So this is people trying to figure this out. So Wikipedia, so we're looking at Wikipedia together, and a bunch of people are gathering around the Wikipedia entry, and then dropping new people in?
Yeah, it's sort of like a video chat where rather than only being focused on, faces, you're actually able to drop in content and kind of
cool.
consume and, read about it together. So
this is great.
Oh, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. I like the way they animate in and out.
Yeah.
It's really sick.
Yeah, I think they originally posted this sort of like vision for it last summer, and I remember being like, damn, like I really wish I had thought of this on like a lot of the ideas, so been rooting for them.
Oh yeah, they talk about whether you're reading articles, writing emails, or watching live streams, the internet is better when you're together.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we think about it so much because we often like are just on a Google Doc reading something together on these. We'll be on for like 2 hours just like literally reading the internet and making a video of that process. Yeah. And I mean, I would love to like peek over the shoulder of just like interesting thinkers and whatever, and just like see how they consume the internet in a bit of a more organic way. I feel like this would really help with that.
Do you have dogs behind you?
I don't know. There's like a farm behind me or something. There's always a woman like yelling about the chickens and stuff. I don't know what's
That's hilarious.
Well, I should also. I told Joey that I would share his project. I mean, this is very timely. In the
kickers.
Stage.
Oh yeah.
This is Joey's other project that he's been working on, which is crazy.
Whoa, which is, cool.
Like voxel NFT shoes.
Oh yeah.
And today, just like an hour ago, they dropped a signature shoe with Wilson Chandler, who is like, I will be honest, I didn't know who Wilson Chandler was, but he is a NBA player, and so they're repping this as like the first I don't know digital pro shoe.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's so funny because like
so if anyone's watching this right now, you can get
fungible tokens. There you go.
Oh my god! Yeah, I haven't even. Yeah, they just launched these, and I was like, I gotta like dial in this thing, but I was like, yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Want to jump sky high? These leafy classics include lifetime VIP status at a dispensary. Wow,
that's so cool. I love the name too. Metagear.llc. Awesome.
Are you following the whole kind of NFT, kind of art communities? Are you sort of close to any of that stuff or paying a lot of attention there?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, it's hard not to pay attention a little bit. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's crazy. it's like the Wild West right now. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what'll happen with it.
Do you think about creating art for that, or kind of designing things that you might sell as pieces?
Yeah, I minted one, and I was like, I'm gonna become a billionaire when I mint this, and no one bought it. So here, let me plug my NFT that no one ever bought.
Did you use a tool like OpenSea or one of the kind of foundation networks or something? One of the ones that help?
I did it on Zora.
Zora.
Yeah, I minted it from this like self-portrait game that I made.
I was gonna say I saw that on your read.cv and I was like,
so what's a self-portrait game?
I made this like self-portrait where you can like play as me and walk around.
It's like The Sims, but I'm Andy.
Yeah, kind of.
That is
oh wow.
So yeah, if anyone's watching this, feel free to put a giant bid on my piece.
A highlight of it, yeah.
that is interesting.
Very nice, very nice.
Wow, that's so cool. This like link collection this morning is pretty fire, I'm gonna say.
I know. This is amazing, yeah. Well, we've got I know we've got our 1 o'clock guest is already here, but we've got to have you back on and do just more like a link exchange, link trading day.
More links.
Yeah, like a read the internet session. I feel like that would be so interesting. One of us just screen shares. I just want to see like all of these go down different Andy rabbit holes.
For sure. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining. We'll throw some highlights out there and share some of the moments. So
cool.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, great to meet you guys too.
Yeah.
See you, Andy. All right.
Ayush is here.
Cool, Ayush. Getting in one final, getting your courage juice. What's Magic Mind?
Is that the mushroom thing?
Which I thought about a lot before I started taking it, but yeah, has nootropics, matcha, basically cool stuff, which helps you. It's like I just take it with coffee and helps me focus and work better.
You actually notice a difference?
Sorry?
You actually notice a difference when you have it versus don't?
Well, yeah, I think I haven't really noticed a drastic difference, but I definitely feel better. I just feel better. I don't know if it's the drink which is doing that or just a placebo effect, but
yeah,
I think it works.
Speaking of better, you also look better than when we had you on Monday. I think we had our bug where we were squishing your face. So my question is, did you change camera or did we fix the bug?
I changed the camera.
You changed the camera, okay. Well, you'll be happy to know you're in good company because we had Eugene Wei on yesterday, and he also had the face squish, and I think it was also due to a DSLR kind of camera hookup. Mm-hmm. So we need to get a little deeper on investigating that, which we'll do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I mean, like, thankfully we have the backstage. You know,
and backstage we can try it out before if we have a good pick for it.
Yeah.
Are you hearing an echo? I'm hearing an echo when DK speaking. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
I do hear a little bit of echo when I speak. Do you have is your audio going into your ear, or do you have it coming maybe out of your computer?
No, it's just my headphones.
Okay, now I think it was a lot. Is it a lot cleaner now? Seems to be cleaner now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are you noticing? Missy, do you notice?
I still hear a little bit of an echo, but it's not that bad.
1 second. Let me actually check if my speaker is this. Yeah, I think I'm fine. Both my headphones are being used for both speaker and microphone.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice that we have like low key. Let's just get our audio video set up. Let's make sure everything's everything's good.
It might be it kind of like
actually, That's one. Yeah, that was one. Is if you, I don't know. Is that's just the spring in the chair? Is that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's actually I live in a hacker house and moved here and took up a room.
It looks like a nice chair.
It's decent, yeah. It's pretty good. It kind of like keeps my back straight, but keeps making this noise, which is annoying.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try fixing it this weekend, probably.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll ask you to just sit like a stone
Very
during the
still.
session. Very tense.
Yeah. minimum movement possible. Yeah.
So you've been on lunch break many times as a kind of casual visitor and kind of read Twitter with us and stuff. And then I forget if we've chatted too much about this new, effectively Building in Public is a rebranded version of lunch break. So it's it's still me and Misty hanging out, and we read Twitter together. We invite interesting people on. And one thing we've been doing a lot recently is just inviting people on who are building something new. And so, as the name says, Building in Public, we like to invite people on who are building something, and we like to learn about kind of your path to deciding to build this, and what it is you're building, and what are the struggles you're finding, and what are the challenges and opportunities, and what surprised you. So it's kind of in a sense, it's just like a exploration of the narrative around you and what you're building. So it should just be easy and fun. Does that all sound fun and easy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm a pro at lunch break at this point. So
yeah, you're a professional lunch breaker, and so the fact that Building in Public is very similar, you will not be super surprised.
Absolutely. Modi is here. Good to see you, Modi ji.
Hey, Modi. I wonder if Modi, he sometimes pops in and he's checking up on us to make sure that everything's working okay.
No bugs. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when we have a new deployment. But yeah, I think we're in good shape. So yeah, I mean, you in the past we've kind of just explored generally what's going on, but I think this time it's nice if we actually focus a bit more on like you and your story with Pesto. So take us back a little bit. What did sort of how did you get to where Pesto is today? What were you doing 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Like what in your career journey led you to kind of to decide to work on Pesto?
Oh God, that is I think every time I get asked this question, I look back and I'm like, holy shit, did all of that happen? But I think my journey is that I actually belong to a small town, Varanasi, where we still have horse carts. So it's like really old town in India, very traditional, and grew up there. I was like fascinated by the whole Silicon Valley journey, and with the Apple launch and iPhone launch and everything else which was happening in Silicon Valley. I would just read a lot on the internet, and I had a dial-up connection which only worked at night. So I would use that, read up a lot, and I was fascinated by Silicon Valley in general, and always wanted to be here. And I think I learned how to code online via different YouTube channels, etc. And I think I was pretty interested in learning how to build apps at the time. I knew how to build websites, etc. PHP, those were the days, right? So yeah, I used to code at that time, and then went to college in Delhi, and going to Delhi for me was a big thing for my entire family. But after I joined college, I realized that 6 months I spent in college trying to really learn, and I think all my teachers said, this will be in future in your curriculum later on, etc. And ultimately I ended up checking my curriculum for 4 years, and I realized that this is not the curriculum I want to, spend my 4 years on. And I moved on, and I realized that the best way to learn was to actually do things. And I jumped right into the startup ecosystem. My parents did not agree to me dropping out, and it was a big thing for them. And in India, your relatives drive a lot of decisions for you.
Was that like a discussion that you had with them, or did you kind of announce it, or how did that work?
So I had a discussion with them. They did not agree. And every person I have in India, you live in extended families, live together. And in situations like these, everybody would start calling my dad that he's spoiling his future, and give like tons of advice you didn't ask for, and they would try to like, sort of make you more tense. So I think my dad was in a lot of stress at that time that, is Ayush really spoiling his future? And there's no one in my family who has ever been an engineer before. And I think, so we didn't really understand what exactly this career path means. Most of them are businessmen. So he did not understand what I was doing at all. And entrepreneurship was alien to him. So he was just stressed. He was like, you'll spoil your career and just do engineering. And I was at a junction where I had sold one of the contracts for 100K, and I was like, 100K was like massive for me at the time. So I just thought I'm just going to go for it. And I thought I'll tell my parents later on, and not telling them just made me have one less problem. So I did not tell them and continued on my journey, moved to a co-working space. And that co-working space was 24/7. I was running low on cash. So I just started living there. They had a couch, they had air conditioning. It was awesome. So I would just shower in the gym, stay in the co-working space, work on my stuff all the time. They had fast internet, great couch, and I would organize events. I was working at Startup Grind. Derek was very kind to support me very early in my journey. So I would organize events, join Startup Grind. Every weekend I'd try to pull off an event, and with that event came a lot of food, which I would then refrigerate and call over all my friends to have a party. So I think, early days were that. I mean, in retrospect, it sometimes looks like hustle, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you had hard times," but it wasn't really hard time for me. I think I really had fun eating burgers all day, and working out of the co-working space.
And was that all a direct connection? You mentioned this 100K contract. Was that like to deliver a software product?
Mm-hmm. So that is what made me drop out immediately. I think that was just a validation for me that I can do that. So that just made me think that I can actually do better with my life rather than an engineering job. So that was more like a confidence booster, which I needed to just take the leap, right? And I think.
And how did you navigate from, like, you have this idea of a 100K contract? Sounds like, I mean, if somebody's paying you 100K for a contract, sounds like they would expect something substantial delivered. So how did you plan to deliver something on that?
I didn't. I screwed up big time there. So they did pay a part of that contract. I made like some 20-30% money on the work done. But it was literally one of the biggest colleges in India, in Delhi. And they were giving me the entire system for their college. And I think later on they realized that I was just one person working with a bunch of interns, and I was just trying to hustle, and they realized that it's not as reliable. So they backed out later on. But I think they were generous enough to pay me for the work I had done till so far. And I think I won that contract with like 13 different companies, all had been operating for 10 years or so.
How did that happen?
And the way... Oh, that's like that's something I'm so proud of.
Tell us.
Yeah, so I was like some 18-year-old at the time, 18, 19, and I had a friend of mine in that college, and I basically hired her as an intern and a bunch of other friends which she had as an intern. And I basically asked all of them to go to their teachers. I knew that this contract is out 4 or 5 months down the line. And I asked all of them to go to their teachers and just ask what is it which they want. So they constantly went there, took feedback, and came up with everything which they wanted. And they gave me that data that, what they're exactly looking for. And what I did is that I used to do a bunch of different contracts as well. I made money by selling websites, etc. So I took all that money and invested in making their portal upfront, their system, website, etc. So I invested in it before even I got the contract. So I made all the things in advance and designed it really well. And based on the feedback which I had from all these people, I literally built the whole thing. I was pretty good at front end. I was not so good at back end. So I literally designed hundreds of static pages.
Wow.
If you click on this button, you will go here. Right. So when we went in, I think there were 10 13 different companies. It's like a government contract, government college, and everybody would pitch that, we have our 2 offices. Somebody had an office in Dubai. Somebody was managing systems of multiple different colleges, so on and so forth. And when I came in, I gave everybody my card, just like everyone else. And everybody literally laughed at me that, oh, you call yourself CEO? That's so funny. And they actually just thought that we're giving this opportunity to this, young guy. And I think they just wanted, there was like an entire board of 12 people who were sitting there. And I think it was almost like, I felt I was there to entertain them. That was the expectation. And, I thought they were like, oh, this is such a cute kid. Let's see him pitch. And I basically told them that the company which you see on the card basically does not exist, because I was not 18 at the time, and I took some time so that I could form a company, and forming a company takes some time. So I told them that that's not true, but what I'm going to show you is absolutely legit. So I opened up the portal and started showing them what I had built. And, the more things I showed them, they were like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. I was like, okay, tell me, what else do you want? They would come up with a feature. Right. I was like, there you go. Right. So I think in that 40 minutes pitch, they were like, oh, this is absolutely amazing. Let's quickly come down to financial. Let's discuss. We absolutely want to go forward with this. Let's do it, so on and so forth. So I think that was like the most epic
I think that's an interesting early lesson to learn, which is oftentimes meeting people where they're experiencing pain and where you can show how to relieve that pain or how to solve the problem is more important than even all of the depth you might have behind it that they can't even see. So there was a philosophy I know from an enterprise software company that used to say, as an engineer, you come and you say, okay, first build it. And so to build it, you first design it and then you build it. And then once it's built, then you sell it. And they said, no, the way you want to do that is you take sell and put it in front. You first sell 100%. And then you design what you sold and then you build what you sold. But it's so expensive to build something and you might get it wrong. Whereas what you did is actually very instructive, which is like, okay, a bunch of static HTML things, but it sells where we're going with this in all of the pieces, and it makes you very fast to respond to their needs as they evolve and as they ask for new features. You can kind of showcase that you understand it. So I think it's like a very important lesson in there, and it's nice that you were able to kind of learn it and figure it out very, very early in your career.
Yeah, I think I was just a Steve Jobs fan growing up, and I think the iPhone launch is what really made me. I wanted to be a chess grandmaster at that time, and I used to play like chess at national level in middle school. So I thought I would pursue that career path. But I think after the iPhone launch, I was like, this is fascinating. I literally switched my mind, and I was like, I'm going to do something in tech.
Were you involved? Is there a big ecosystem of kind of chess camps and feeders within India? Is that a common kind of pursuit?
Yeah.
And so were you involved in Varanasi? Is there a club or a camp that you were a member of or participated as?
Yeah, absolutely. My school has a team, and we compete at zonal and national levels. And we also there is like systems. You play a state level chess and then national level chess, which is open as well. But CBSC, the board of our school, organizes competitions as well. So chess is pretty popular. I think we have.
Do you still play today, kind of casually, or?
Casually, yes, with friends. But I think professionally, I haven't played in a long time now.
Do you ever play any variants?
Oh yeah. I mean, I like playing Dragon, Sicilian Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit became like quite popular after
with
the movie, but I think I usually am like strong with black, playing dragon, and those kind of stuff. So it used to be fun, just learning different openings, etc. Yeah,
there were a lot of friends. I was never like formally trained in it in a sense. I didn't formally compete, but I have a lot of friends who we would be playing together, especially even in Silicon Valley, Soma. There's like lots of people who play. And speed chess was really big. I don't know if you ever play speed chess much. But
I only play speed chess.
Oh, you only play? Okay. Well, we got like really into that. So during lunch break, we would like be playing chess. Get like half a dozen games in.
Yeah. Yeah, so Blitz is like, the 5 minute each person game. And I think we play Blitz most of the time. I think there was one match which is pretty sort of, I remember I played on an incremental clock, which lasted for hours, like 6-7 hours. We were just sitting there, playing. And that ended up in a draw eventually.
When you take a move, you get an extra 30 seconds added. So you never actually have to expire it, but you're still under pressure to make your next move.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fun. So I didn't know you were going towards chess master before you got to entrepreneurship.
I was. And my dad was very stressed. He made me play every sport. His philosophy was play every sport, try everything else. And whatever sport I would play, I would just go deeper into it. Like if he makes me play cricket, I'd be like, I want to be a cricketer. And he would constantly pull me out of those sports and encourage me to try something else.
So he was very supportive of like a fairly exploratory path, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then he was also a little stressed when you were telling him, I want to drop out and serve this 100K contract.
Yeah. My dad's agenda of sending me to a good school was that he wanted me to speak in English. That's it. That's for him. That is the only reason he sent me to a good school. And I think his agenda to send me to an engineering college was that he'll become an engineer and he'll come back to our house, and he has a small trading business, and he thought he'll take care of the business and my dad will retire. And that was like his plan. And I think we had a deal that towards the end of my 4 years of engineering, whoever makes more money, the other person will move to them. It's like if I build up my career, my dad comes to me and move in with me. And if he makes more money than me, then I would go back to him. So I was like, I had like 4 years. Towards the end of engineering, there's no way I would make more money because engineers are highly underpaid in India, for context, which is why I built Pesto. But I had the stress, that I have to be successful towards the end of this 4 years. Otherwise, my dad is going to call me back. So, yeah, I think that was... And now we are like completely in literally 7,780 kilometers away. The farthest we could go.
So let's on lunch break one day. Get your parents on.
Yeah,
that'd be so funny. Yeah.
But let's connect. So we were talking about this contract you had and the front end work you did, and kind of is that a fairly direct kind of through line to kind of the beginning of Pesto, or are we still a few years before kind of Pesto begins?
Mm-hmm. No, I think immediately after that, I think that contract didn't pan out as I wanted. I just started working on a bunch of different ideas. Majority of them didn't work out. And I think I just, at some point I was like, I want to learn more, be around, people who could teach me and work for amazing people and all that. So I basically took a one-way flight, came to US, started looking for internships in different companies. And what I suddenly realized is that I was making like $10,000 post-college, right? Like that's the job which you could get. And in US, you could get a 100K job being a fresher. Like it's, based on the things I had done before, I just showed that to a bunch of companies and they could give me a 100K job. And that was like fascinating for me. And on the same trip, I came across a talk by Balaji, who was building earn.com at that time. And he was speaking at Startup Grind. So I was, connected to Startup Grind, and I got into the conference. And at the conference, I saw his talk around building a great culture in a remote company. And I found that was like fascinating. I really was impressed by the way remote teams were being built. And I did some more research, came across GitLab Zapier, who had been doing it for years. And I was like, oh, this is not actually new. We have been living, under a stone or something. So I decided, a stone is too small, but yeah. So I decided that this is something which I want to pursue. I built up a very, very strong conviction at that time. I pitched myself to people that, hey, what if I just go back and work from India? I'll give you a 50% discount. How about that? And people were so fine with it. And I went back to India and met someone there who was like, building it, and I just decided that I'm just going to take people in India, help them get the cultural context, etc., and connect them to companies in US. And I just realized that this remote work is so practical, it's more efficient, it works, but not many people know about it. So I had this conviction that over the next 5 years or so, this transition has to happen, because the number of developers, like software is eating the world, yes, but not as fast as it could be, right? You have more than 500K open job positions in US, and you have the number of grads coming out of US who cannot just fill that gap, and this gap is widening every single year, and I feel developing more software developers is really hard. I feel that the next million developers, which the West needs, are going to come from countries like Nigeria, like India, East Europe, and Vietnam, and places like that. And we already have signals. If you look at the reports published by GitHub, it's like very clear. The open source contribution by these countries is really increasing massively, and I feel like the next million developers will come from these places, and that will be good for the ecosystem.
Yeah, so, for sure. Yeah. And I wonder, when you think about kind of getting these next million developers from these ecosystems kind of connected to the kind of Western opportunities that you're mentioning, do you find that there are some sort of like maybe there are sort of cultural boundaries that people have to get comfortable with, or like you mentioned how maybe your father assumed you would get an engineering degree and come work in the trade business, and it seems like similarly, if you get a role in India with a local company, or a company that's well understood and respected, that's one thing. But if you're going to bridge to this distant opportunity, and maybe it's a company, maybe it's a startup nobody's heard of, or at least your family has not heard of, maybe it's known in Silicon Valley but your family doesn't know about it in India, how do you does that kind of thing create a lot of friction? And are there ways already that you're seeing that kind of understanding and kind of acceptance kind of emerge?
I think that is emerging. We have like I'm not sure if we are supposed to talk about this, but we'll just delete it. We have a great example sitting right here. Modi had an offer from Google, right? He was like, Highlighter is cooler, right? And he joined Highlighter instead. He's very capable, amazing person. He didn't have that access before, but I'm sure it's working out pretty well, right? Like, my video is not buggy. The platform looks pretty cool. So I think it's amazing. Like, there are so many more people like Saurabh is the best person. Like,
he's the best.
Very popular, but there are so many more people out there who just do not. It's like an unknown for them. Like, I came to US to learn things. I thought people here are magical. They just have so many, they know so many amazing things, and they can do so much more. It was just an unknown for me, so I made things up, right? But when I actually came here, I realized that the bar is not that high. There are a lot of incredible people in India and different parts of the world who just have the capability, or extremely hardworking, and they just don't know that, it's like an unknown for them. So I think the moment you sort of remove that unknown, it just opens up immense possibilities which didn't exist before. So I think it's just that, right? Like, that does the magic, and I feel that brings breaks a lot of stereotypes, and gives opportunity to talent in different parts of the world. So,
and so it sounds like maybe the families in India would be starting to get more comfortable with this style of work. Is that becoming a more acceptable style of work?
I think
big trend.
I think over next 30 to 40 years, I see there are only two transitions which has happened till date. Indian parents, just like my story, right? Like, Indian parents, I always say this, Indian parents love making babies, and they make them all do engineering. They make a lot of babies, they make them all do engineering. They don't know what they are going to do after engineering, but they just make them all do engineering, right? There's so much more big peer pressure. There are a million people who sit for the single exam which, helps different colleges admit people, 1 million people each year, right? That's a lot of people who want to be engineers. So I think there is absolutely no shortage of people who want to do engineering. And where does this mindset come from is what I'm going to talk about next. 30 to 40 years ago, there was this entire industry, the outsourcing industry, which was trending in India. There are a bunch of outsourcing firms who went to India and said that we are going to have these jobs, which are going to be very highly secure jobs. You can feel that sense of job security there, and you will be paid well. And it's called outsourcing. It's great, and you have to be an engineer to be eligible for that. So that entire outsourcing industry gave rise to this popularity in engineering, and everybody wanted to be a computer engineer suddenly, right?
Was this kind of the growth of like Wipro and TCS, those types of big firms?
Exactly.
Would have been some of the brands that people would recognize as legitimate?
Absolutely. So TCS, Accenture, Infosys, Tech Mahindra, all of these are brands, and just the names which I took employ more than 1 million people, right? Like only these 4 companies. And I feel that gave rise to the built like a great foundation and a really high number of engineers. The transitions which I was talking about was that this tech consulting industry built up a great foundation of a large number of engineers. Then the startup ecosystem started booming in India a decade ago, right? Like in last 15 years or so, great product companies are being built in India, right? And I think in last 15 years, India built great product companies. And now what's happening is that India is going to build for the world. So the transition of consulting industry being popping up in India, then transition from consulting industry to product-led nation, right? That happened. And now what's happening is that India is building for the world, right? That transition is going to happen, and a lot of top talent is going to move there. So I think we are just a means to that end, right? Like, I mean, it's not that Pesto is really, innovating and changing the world. We're just being an enabler in that process, right? That is going to happen whether we exist or not, And I think...
so presumably the style of how you do it, the way you approach it, the brand you build, the communities you build on both sides will help define how those relationships work and look. So yes, maybe if Pesto didn't exist, it would happen, but it might happen in different ways. So I think part of what you can do, I think, is try to, help both sides kind of help it happen faster, help become like a bit of a tastemaker or a quality bar and judge to help people aggregate around that. So I wonder when you... Oh, sorry, Mishti, did you have something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just going to ask more about that. How do you think about that bridge building process? Like the bridges that you're creating in terms of both like understanding and context and skills, like there's a lot in that mix. And so kind of what have you found have been the most important things to teach someone who goes through Pesto that ends up benefiting both sides?
Got it. I think it's pretty simple. I think if you look at it from that perspective, what we are trying to do, we are basically trying to build cadence in this entire process, right? Like if you try to hire people in India, you put up a job position, you will get 10,000 applications, right? Because there are a lot of engineers. But how do you differentiate? Being a company in US, you don't know what colleges there are, except IITs. I think that seems to be popular. But because, Google, is built by everyone at IIT. So people know IIT, but they don't know what companies are there. How do you look at a resume? How do you understand, etc., etc. And also filtering the noise. As I said before, Indian parents make a lot of babies and they make them all do engineering. And all those babies with engineering are going to apply for those job positions. So it's a really hard problem to like filter through that, and the cost of interviews go high, etc., etc. Pesto is just building a predictable way to get the right person, right? So what we do is that we take these developers who are already incredible, right? Like they're amazing developers, they have some experience, and we feel that there is certain context which they need. Some of it is technical, certain technical concepts which they need. Other things are more cultural in nature, right? Like more about tech culture, more about soft skills, etc., etc., which they need. And we help them, bridge that gap, learn all that. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not that we do like a 12-month program. We are not teaching them how to code. We are just trying to give them context, and we're trying to remove unknowns from their lives. They're all really hardworking, incredible people, right? We're just trying to be an enabler, and once they're ready, we help them get the right companies. And while they train, we are able to understand what they are good at in a much more efficient way. Like if you interview them, it's really hard in an interview to give someone a coding test and know how good a person is in particular field. But because they go through our training program and they spend time with us, we have these data points throughout. They go through the training, so we have these data points what they're good at, which puts us in this unique position to match the right people to the right companies, and hence our companies don't have to interview a lot of people before they hire them, right? They can be quicker, right? Every second, third developer which they interview, they hire them.
And so it sounds like you've built out a lot of the process around kind of the sourcing, vetting, filtering, kind of some training, both soft skills and technical polish on the talent side. I wonder, sort of on the company side, how you think about the roadmap. So I'll share a little bit of our stories. Like Highlighter, we were fortunate to bump into Pesto. I think it was a couple of years ago. It's been, right?
Sorry to disturb here. I think I think we should put David on stage. I'm a Highlighter creator.
Right here.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll do the auto layout sometime soon.
Awesome. But, please praise us, David.
But we've been fortunate to be working together. I think haphazardly. I think we sort of met through Twitter, so it's kind of one of these magic things that get connected, and we've had a lot of success in kind of working with talent that we've met through Pesto. But I think we've been exploratory in our own sense. We're sort of like, I'd say, on the open end of like, let's try something, let's experiment with it. And when we find something, like working with Pesto has worked really well for us. So we keep coming back to meet more people and met so many great ones through Pesto. But I wonder, that works because maybe we were very experimental, and you and I kind of know each other now, and we kind of know how to work together. But I wonder, the number 100, the 100th company that comes to Pesto that maybe doesn't have as close plugged in relationship to be able to talk to you about it. How do you coach them to kind of have the same success that we've had? Like, is there a way to systematize on the company side? Like, I've never received any training from you about what we should be doing. We kind of, poke around in the dark, and we kind of figure it out over time, and try to make sure people are happy and successful. But I imagine that there's some things that that you could structure within the Pesto program to help a company like Highlighter to be able to be kind of a better steward of kind of talent and service, and to make the experience better for everybody. Understand if we're missing expectations, like are people hoping that we're going to have a different process, use different tools, have different type of communication, because I think there's probably, you're a bridge, and I think most of your effort so far is bridging from filtering and bridging talent into these opportunities. But I think there's also opportunity to bridge companies about how to operate in this world, and kind of based on both like operational stuff, as well as kind of cultural stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I think thanks for asking that question. But I think the way we think about it is pretty simple, right? Like, at the end of the day, great companies want great talent, and no matter how close I am to people, or how sort of fancy you are, how popular you are, at the end of the day, if people you hire are not getting the work done, then you have a bad service, right? So I think it's as simple as that. I think I knew this on day one, that the quality of talent is something which is the only thing which will make you succeed in long term, right? So we designed the program in such a way that we attract the right talent, and if you have the right talent, the right companies will come to you, right? So I think it becomes so simple. So now we don't have to sell, right? Like, majority of companies who have hired from us, they continue to hire, and so many of them refer more people to hire from us. And that's the most beautiful thing on our journey so far, right? Like, if I ask you how many people you referred to try Pesto, I'm sure there's like a long list, right? And we're super grateful for that, and so many more things you have done. But I think you would not refer people if it didn't work for you, right? Over and over again. So I think that is something which we feel we wanted to be like first principles driven, and that is helping us. From now on, as we scale, I think one of the things which we are trying out, which is like working extremely, extremely well, is giving people trials, right? There are so many, we realize that talent is actually not, people now trust us on talent because they've been around for a couple of years, and they know that the developers, they hear good things from people who have tried it, etc., etc. So I think that trust is there. But what is missing is the mental barrier they have. That how is it?
Right.
How does it work? People from different time zones, people from different cultures. How does it work? I think that barrier to entry is something which we were trying to cross, and we came up with an offer. We are just beta testing it with some of our existing customers. We said that we will match you to the right candidates. Our data says that every third developer you interview, you hire them. So let's do something. You tell us what are you looking for. If you like any of the profiles, we are going to sponsor. You are going to get that person to start working with you part-time. And you start a 2-week trial. And towards the end of second week, if you like that person, you go ahead and hire them. If you don't like that person, Pesto will give you 100% refund and pay that developer from our pockets. Right? Try it out for 2 weeks and see how it works, right? So I think that is something which we are looking to implement, and that is something which helps the companies to go over multiple barriers, which we don't have to sell basically now, right? Like we're like, try it out. If it works, go ahead with it. If it doesn't, full refund, no questions asked, right? So it becomes much more simpler like that. So.
Yeah, I like that. I think one of the things when I think about Pesto relative to the rest of the market, I think one of the things that we like, and we've worked with lots of different types of talent networks and kind of various relationships for meeting talent. But I think one of the things I really like about the Pesto philosophy and the offering is that it's meant to be like, it's designed to be a long-term relationship from the talent side as well as from the company side. Like everybody's looking for the same thing. So, there's some types of talent sources that are kind of designed to be short-term project, get something done and then move on. And that is a different way to engage with the world and, different, mechanics and expectations. But I think one thing that I think Pesto really does well is it gets people geared up for these long-term kind of, working relationships over many years and in many cases. And, but I think the thing you're talking about is actually really interesting, because if you can create, you sort of, that you have the, let's say, confidence in the quality of talent, but you need to lower the risk, the perceived risk from a company side. You can actually help that. And I wonder if there are other ways to think about that too. Like a couple that come to mind are, I think the goal of getting to long-term relationships seems like the right goal, but I wonder if there are even like short-term, almost like project-based things that can help people like accomplish a project. Like, let's say you have one, subsystem or feature that you want to work on. If you could spec it well and have it in a way that it could be sort of digested and kind of worked on. Maybe there's even like a Pesto team that could kind of own that, and then from that work experience, you actually get a lower stakes way to kind of work collaboratively with people before making that long-term commitment, even if everybody intends for it to lead to a longer-term commitment. So I wonder, have you thought about other methods for kind of helping lower that risk or kind of perceived risk, given the certainty that you've done already on the vetting side?
Yeah, I think another thing which we do is, I think whenever, for example, we send you profiles, along with that, you see a project which they have made, and we make the project open source and show you the code and how they're creating README files, etc., etc. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to reduce the cost of interviews. As an employer, if you want to hire someone, you should be able to look at their code and you should be able to look at a video of theirs just talking about them and their life even before you should start interviewing them. I feel like you shouldn't invest your time in that until you see that. And if you like all of that, then we're saying that you can either do like a coding test, make them solve puzzles, which is not a true reflection of their skill sets, or you can just get them on a trial and see how it goes. So I think we're trying both of those. We've seen some success with people just creating like a replica of what they're currently working on or a feature which they want to build in future, and just speccing it out and giving it to people to work in those 2 weeks. And I think that not just works as a way to get a reflection of people's skill sets, but also, they end up building something useful which they can use in future. So I think that kind of like.
Another thing that I think I've been excited about, and I think we've chatted about a little bit before, but sometimes when somebody's doing projects for kind of a Pesto process, a lot of the projects that people are doing are kind of within the curriculum, and so as somebody reading a profile, it's sometimes hard to disambiguate exactly like how did one person do on that project versus another person on a similar project. And so what I've been asking for, and I think is actually a big opportunity for Pesto, is if there were like a Pesto score that was just kind of like, we've met these people, we've worked with them, we know a lot about them, and here's how they rank in kind of whatever. Maybe there's some criteria of like 6 or 8 axes, and they're really strong at this and like okay at that and better at this or that. And so in a sense, it becomes a little bit of almost like almost like we have SATs for college entrance, right? If it was something like that, where it was like a Pesto score, I think that kind of thing is helpful to both sides of the network because it sets expectation on talent and on companies. And then I think it also is really good for the network and brand itself, because then people say, oh, it's your Pesto score. What's your SAT? What's your Pesto score? It's kind of becomes, a whole ecosystem that gathers around the network and service and process that you're building. So I wonder, I know I've sort of, suggested something like that before. I don't know if that's, a good idea, bad idea, near term, long term, but just curious kind of what you're thinking about with that.
It's an amazing idea. I think I remember this is the first thing you told me when we went for a walk near the bridge. And I think since then I'd been thinking about it. We actually implemented it. So I think it's been a while you interviewed people from scratch, but what we did is that we make instructors who are teaching those people give them marks when they review their pull requests. And they don't say marks. We created like a criteria, a rubrics which they have to follow. And we are able to give people rating for React separately, for Node separately. So as an employer, you're basically able to predict that what kind of person I need. Do I need someone who is decent in React and Node both? Do I need someone who is excellent in React and has a decent understanding of Node? So what we have been able to do, like coincidentally with this, is that we take this data from employers, what they're looking for, and we're able to automate this entire sort of workflow. So now you just tell what you're looking for, and then we wrote some scripts on top of Airtable, which is going to grab people who fit into that criteria and give you a list right away. So the whole platform becomes almost like a self-serve platform. So you don't need to like even talk to us. You can just jump on the website. You can say, these are the things I'm looking for. You get a list that these are the candidates. Look at their work, look at their video, where they come from. And if you like someone, interview them or just get them on trial.
Yeah. What other sorts of things have you heard from people on the hiring side in terms of like interesting feedback that you've gotten about stuff that would be useful? Or are there any like focus areas you're actively looking into right now?
Yeah, I think like we have been looking into ways to present people the best. For example, I think one of the feedback which has been interesting is working on a Pesto score. I think what we want to be careful about is that we don't want to downplay anyone, because if you are in a race, then somebody has to be lost, and that's not good. I feel there are no bad or good employees. I feel there are good fit or bad fit employees, and everyone is a good fit somewhere, right? So I feel from that perspective, that's why we are sort of like thinking about how to do it in the right way. And I think the second thing which we have been thinking about is when we talk to a recruiter, they need to look at something very different. Whereas when we're talking to a VP engineering or a tech lead who's hiring, they need to know, they appreciate knowing the technical details of what somebody's working on. So I think they've been thinking about interesting ways to, sort of show people, whatever would be most efficient way of showing them the skills of these people. Yeah.
And is that also,
I think.
Does that also differ depending on like the seniority of talent, how you think about hiring or like connecting people who are way more junior in their careers as opposed to someone who's at a pretty high position already, maybe looking to transition into working remotely? Like, how do you think about those differently?
So for us, it's our audience is pretty much the same. We like go in a very targeted way. Like we would, we would have edge cases, but I think looking for a CTO from Pesto is probably a bad idea, right? I'm sure there are some people who are pretty capable, but I think we focus on talent, which is like an amazing IC contributor, and that's what they're trained for. That's what we screen for. So I think that kind of like makes our job easier. That we just have to look at this audience and figure out a way that how you are able to express their skill sets in the most efficient way. So I think we won't have that problem because of that the audience is same. We don't believe in junior talent in a way that we feel that when you go remote, having some experience on your belt helps. And that's why Pesto has been focused on mid to senior talent only. And I wish I could do more for people because we just have this incredible number of people who, have been cheerleading for us from the side, want to get into the program, and they sometimes get disappointed when. So I feel like in future, hopefully, we're able to come up with something for them. But I think we are just like focused on one kind of talent, and that helps us showcase their skills like in a much more efficient way.
I wonder if you thought about any forms of, I don't know, like I think of the concept of an open house or a career fair that kind of makes for easy matching. I don't know if it's one side or the other side, but you kind of just make the place where people can gather, and then like people figure out what are the best matches. I wonder if would there be something fun to do, like almost like a startup showcase where you have 5-6 companies come, they each tell their story for 5-6 minutes each, and then all of the talent can gather and say, oh, I really like what this one's working on. Let me go follow up and we can talk to them. Or you can sort of figure out how to, I don't know exactly the mechanics, but something around instead of trying to do everything one by one over email, if you can kind of just like create a meeting hub and get everybody into the same space at the same time and sort of like, try to nurture magic through that versus try to do all the one-off connections.
Got it. Yeah, I think like the emails will probably still be there because people can then choose. But I think what you're pointing out is absolutely fair. I think one of the things we committed to ourselves this quarter is that we want to make sure that this quarter we become we are committed more towards building in public. So we are brainstorming on ideas like demo days, reverse pitches, and also doing town halls every month so that we can take constant feedback from the community and just try to understand what more they're looking for. So I think that is something which we've committed ourselves to. So you'll see like a ton of building in public initiatives happening by this end of quarter. So 100% on our mind.
Yeah, obviously whenever you're building in public, one of the great tools for doing that.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. I think a lot of people will go on a hunger strike if we use anything else.
So back to some of the mechanics of Pesto. I think effectively we could think about it as a marketplace, right, where there's talent on one side and there's kind of a vetting and training piece there, and then there's companies on the other side. And I think with any marketplace, you kind of need to grow each side somewhat proportional to the other so that things don't get out of alignment. But I wonder, like, do you feel like you have more playbooks around one side and you're sort of most of your effort now needs to go into the other side, or how does that look today?
We just have this incredible tailwind and growth on supply side, and also incredible talent who we have in our team, and I'm so grateful for that. I feel because of those things, our supply side was figured out by the end of last year, And I moved to
the talent
US.
side.
The talent side, yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Like, we just have this incredible 6,000-7,000 applicants. The quality of talent is really high. 7K people applying every month, and all organic. It's I think 80% organic or so. So that like really gave us a lot of confidence that we have support from our talent, and we should really go all in and sort of build out the demand side. So I came to US in January and started building out things. We had a couple of people here, and we were lucky with that as well. Found people who could really relate with our mission, and they were like, "No, I don't know why this doesn't exist, and I really want to work on this." And I had a couple of people like that who were very enthusiastic about what we were doing, because I think, yes, we are building a great business, but along with that, something which motivates us the most is the amount of impact we are able to create on all these people, right? Like, I think at an average, our people get, I don't look at it just as a financial benefit, but they get like a 5x better paying job, which helps. But apart from that, they get to work with some phenomenal people, right? I think across the world, which they hadn't done before. It's super interesting. They get treated so well, and the opportunities to work on interesting things is this just didn't exist on a career roadmap of an engineer back then, right? Like, there's something totally new. It's an alternate career path, right? So I think that is so exciting for talent and for companies here. It's, I know, like, there are so many investors in US who specialize in helping you find tech talent, right? Like, that's a pitch for them, and there are so many amazing recruiters, but I think hiring developers is a big problem, and I think we can all agree on that, right? Like, finding good developers is massive gap. So I think people get access to that talent as well in a much more predictable way. So I think it's like a big win for both sides, and I think we win in the process as well, being an enabler, and I feel that it just helps everyone and creates a beautiful win-win situation and ends up creating a great impact in the process. So I think I'm very sort of grateful for having a great team and just pushing more aggressively on this.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that one of the things that is going to help, at least on the demand side, let's say on the company side, is getting more of these stories out about what success for companies looks like. Because I think you mentioned the big wave, the big kind of business impact wave in India. I think you said 30 years ago was everybody wanted to get engineering skills to work in IT services, and I think I think there's probably some holdover perception that people have not yet understood that IT services is not the only thing. From a U.S. company might not understand that IT services is not the only thing that India can do. In India, it's actually great at building homegrown products, at helping build products for the world. And so I think there's like maybe a perception gap that you can help close by making sure that the good stories get told when people have success in working in this kind of global style that you're enabling. You can kind of help tell those stories, make sure they get more visibility so that people understand the quality of talent that exists worldwide, especially in India, in kind of a large scale, and the needs to, I think both sides have this need, and both feel a deep amount of pain that you are able to correct and sort of shore up, right? So I'm excited about the future of Pesto because of like that existing pain is so deep on both sides, and I think the more that you can tell the stories of success and what it looks like, I think both sides need to hear more of those stories so that they can find better understanding, so they know how to engage. So with that, I know we're actually running to our end time for building in public in the hour that we sort of allocated to spend together. But I did want to just check if I'm trying to remember if there are any major gaps of things that we were talking about or that we sort of haven't had a chance to cover yet, or any major topics that are on your mind related to kind of Pesto or what you're building that we haven't had a chance to cover.
No, I think nothing that comes to my mind, but I think I'd just love to. The points that you were making were absolutely something which is my focus area for next couple of months. I just shared a tweet from Xavier as well, who's been like a supportive partner and I think stuff like that. I think I also want to like commit to building in public and get these stories out, because I feel like a lot of people know in internal circles, like with word of mouth, but I feel we would be focusing on getting these out more consciously. And cool. I think just a side note that we'll be committing to that. Like Xavier is building Index, incredible company building dashboards for people who can't build dashboards, and I think it's a incredible company that they're building. Came out of YC, currently funded by Graded Ventures, right? And their almost entire tech team is built with Pesto grads, right? And they can just focus on building more.
That's awesome.
And
so you know what? Let's do this to help tell the story. Why don't you connect us to Xavier? We'll invite him on to Building in Public, and we can ask him about his story. So we'll learn about the Index story. We'll also learn about his experience working with Pesto, and then there's another Western company that's getting the success case story out around how this kind of collaboration works, and then we'll have
absolutely. I think I'm gonna bring every single customer I have on a highlighter.
Great.
and I have this cheat code called DK, which is But this is awesome.
Now whenever we get introduced to a new company or somebody building something, we're like, just come on Building in Public. Let's do it. So it's a good context for us to meet people and learn about how people are building things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. But thanks again for hosting me, and so happy being here again for a millionth time.
Yeah, it's been so fun. Well, this time we got to actually focus on you and Pesto, so that was fun and new stuff for us.
Absolutely, yeah. It's always fun being here. Oh, we should bring Modi on for 5 minutes.
I'd be happy to have him, but I'm not sure. Sometimes he doesn't want to be on camera. we can see it.
Right. But let's get him on. Let's get him on with you soon, though. Maybe earlier.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. 100%. I think it might be too late for him. Yeah, I agree.
I always forget the time difference. But
we'd love to have him come up with us too sometime.
Awesome. Cool. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks.
See you.